Alright, I'm gonna be real. I had a couple lapses in judgment this month. Hi everyone, my name is Sam, and thanks for checking out this video and joining in on my shame. Make sure to hit the subscribe button down below, hit the bell notification, and give the video a thumbs up. I managed to accumulate over a dozen new books this month. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Things got excessive. So yeah, these are the books that I managed to accumulate this month. I think like 3 of them were planned, and 2 of them were arcs or like given to me by the author for review, and the rest just, I don't know, I blacked out in a store and just left with them, okay? So the first one I picked up, and I imagine many of you picked it up, I'm not the only one, and I definitely planned it, but I picked up my copy of Kingdom of Ash. This is the Indigo exclusive, and it has the illustrations on the inside, and I'm very excited to read it next month, hopefully, or you know, whenever I feel like it. Let's be real, it's probably gonna be next month. I think, yeah, 6th and final book in the in the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas, and I'm kind of scared. Several people have said the same thing too. I'm kind of scared to finish it, just because, like, this is the first series Maas that I've read has ever finished, so I don't know what she's gonna do to me. Like, is she gonna do me real dirty? Or is she going to give me like a happily ever after? And then I'm going to be upset that she didn't do me dirty. But then when she does me dirty, I'm upset that she did it. It's like this weird vicious cycle. My copy of Soulbinder finally showed up too, from Sebastian de Castell. I'm so freaking excited. And thankfully this book showed up like literally I think like a couple days before Canada Post went on strike. So success. I still am waiting for several books from Book Depository and gifts and friends in the mail. So I'm just going to assume, even that Canada Post is still on strike here, so I'm going to assume they're not going to show up for the next like couple weeks at the bare minimum. So yeah, so this was probably the one that I was like, oh, I need it though. So yeah, 4th book in the Spellslinger series, and I love this series so much, and I love the UK covers, and I hate the American covers, so UK cover it is. I also got my copy of The Caged Queen by Kristen Cicerelli. I'm so excited about this one. Queen, which is the companion, not the sequel, to The Last Namsara, which is like very dark dragons and storytelling, and it's really good, and she's a Canadian author, so Canadian authors, and to this pretty cover. I also, out of pure cover glory and curiosity, picked up A Winter's Promise, there we go, by Christelle Dabus. This was originally published in France. I want to say it was France. Yeah, in the French language, Parisian French, not French Canadian, and it's like, it was very well published, so sold well enough that they wanted to translate it into English. And look at that cover, and I know it's supposed to be a quartet, and I've heard like either very positive or very negative things, so I'm very, very curious to give this one a go. And like, it's just really pretty, and it was just a really random thing, and it's supposed to be very dark and like a naive girl in this weird world where essentially it's like being punished by the gods, and like the main character, I think her name's like Ophelia, yeah, which is what also really piqued me, because I've read several books either with Ophelia in the name, like about feminism, or like the actual like Ophelia, and like she's supposed to be promised to a marriage, and then she like ends up running away, or she finds out all of like the political entanglement that she's been like kind of thrown into with this, and I'm very curious about it. I'm not sure when I'm going to get to it, just because of the title. I want to try and get to it this winter, but it's just starting winter in Canada, so I got like 8 more months. Let's be real, Canada's always winter. But yeah, so A Winter's Promise. I also finally picked up a copy of Fox by Nadine Brandes. I almost picked it up a few times when I was at a conference somewhere. And then I went back and they were all sold out. And I was like, oh, that's too bad. But this author has a book coming out in, I want to say April, or maybe later, in 2019, called Romanovs. And I was like, what? Like, just jung shook. Like, what? There's a book called Romanovs coming out, and it's YA, like, that needs to be in my hands. I'm going to pre-order it no matter what. But I'd like to know what I'm getting myself into with this author. So when I was in Edmonton, I picked up Fox, and I was interested in it from the beginning. I heard people who, I honestly don't like put a lot of merit into reviews about historical fictions, especially YA historical fictions, because dear Lord, the amount of reviews I read that are 1-starring historical fiction and leave a comment of, oh my god, it's so slow. And I'm like, of course it was. It's a historical fiction, human. What were you expecting? So I just ignore them. And the cover is hella cool. I'm a sucker for masquerade masks. And it also made me, for some reason, think of Guy Fawkes because of the title as well. But, and then I heard the, or read. And this is, I only want to say this part of like the blurb because this is what like made me be like, cool, so I have to buy that. Thomas Fox is turning to stone, and the only cure to the stone plague is to join his father's plot to assassinate the King of England. Done! I'm definitely going to read this in the next few months. I'm very curious, and I don't know why, but the colors just got me thinking wintertime-ish, so next couple months. And oh my god, I'm excited for that Romanov book! Context, if you're new to this channel, I did my first degree in history and spent literally 11 of 20 courses or something like that that I had to do in history doing Russian history. Like, I took literally every Russian history course my school offered. Literally. I also picked up A Sorrow Fierce and Falling by Jessica Cluess. This is the third and sadly final book in, I'm not sure what this series is actually technically called anymore, but it was Shadow, Bright, and Burning when it, like, that's the first book, so we're just going to call it Shadow, Bright, and Burning series. But it's like, I've used this explanation to explain These Vicious Masks before, but it's like Victorian era X-Men, but this is more like sorcery focused and like witchcrafty, whereas I find I don't know what language I just accent I got, but These Vicious Masks I find is more still like about society and like you're still kind of involved in the Victorian era, whereas this is like, there's the Victorian era, but there's like, it's like a cloak for all of this other stuff. So I'm very excited. I feel like the series is so underhyped and I'm so curious. I have to read this book in the next couple months. I want to reread A Shadow, Bright, and Burning and A Poison, Dark, and Drowning first though. So I'm going to get to those in the next few months, so maybe I can start this in the early new year. I, once again, on a whim, because of the cover sounding cool and reading like half of a sentence of the summary, picked up Give the Dark My Love by Beth Revis. I haven't heard a ton about this author or this book, but the few things I have heard have been overwhelmingly positive. All I really know about it is there's necromancy. And I was like, Jung shook again, and was like, cool, so I guess I have to buy it, right? That's like one of my trigger words. But I saw death itself. It was a feral thing made of smoke and shadow, and it was hollow and empty and hungry. And I was like, honestly, like, so like, oh, I have to try this because Carrie Maniscalco blurbed it. So, way to go, marketing team. This was on you. Good job, marketing team. You earned your salary. My pre-order showed up for a Muse of Fire by Heidi Healing, and oh dear lord, am I excited about this. I literally don't even think I've actually read the summary for this one, and I'm not going to. I pre-ordered this book when it was literally on Goodreads listed as, I can't verbatim remember the word, but it was literally like, Shakespeare retelling, question mark, and I was like, cool, so I'm buying that. And I think this was one of my most anticipated reads of the year. I absolutely adore The Girl from Everywhere, which is her debut duology, and I think this is set to be a trilogy, and I've heard really, really positive things from, who was it? I think it was my friend Meg, actually, and I valued her opinion specifically because this is supposed to have Asian influences, and Meg does have experience living in, not for a long period of time, but living in Asia, and she did a lot of school stuff in that. So I'm very curious about this, and any hint of a Shakespeare retelling, and you got me. So once again, good job, marketing team. I don't even know if the marketing team had anything to do with that. It was probably just someone on Goodreads being like, is that Shakespeare? Question mark? Because we all know after Speak Easy, Speak Love, which is that pink book there, right there. See my finger? Oh, it's my cup there. Right there, right there. That I'm trash for Shakespeare retelling, so get on that, NaNoWriMo people. I happily picked up a copy of The Light Between Worlds by Laura Weymouth. Part of the reason being she's, and this is her wording, she's an exiled Canadian living in New York, but she is also coming to the TBR and Beyond book group in December. Also, that cover dough, and underneath it's gray. It's very sleekly designed color-wise, like it doesn't wash it out, it's just very sharp. And there's also a moose on the cover, which, like, I'm Canadian, man. Like, just a moose. I'm very curious about this. It sounds like pretty stereotypical YA fantasy, but I'm here for it. If there's a stereotype, I mean, it's a stereotypical YA because it's stereotypically YA, and people seem to love it whenever authors do this stuff. So, I think there's supposed to be, like, they told us, They told us a woodland's heart always finds its way home, but how do you find your way if your heart is torn in two? So I'm assuming there's going to be some like love triangle action. I'm going to take a, like, just throw a dart at a board right now and just assume that they're going to be brothers. I don't know. If I'm right, like, I feel like that says a lot about YA, but either way, I'm going to read this one next month. I'm really curious about it. Actually, I think The Light Between Worlds was also one of those few books that I didn't find a single person who read the arc of it, so I'm very curious about that. I also picked up The Train to Impossible Places by P.J. Bell. This is a middle grade book where, like, there's a girl sitting in her living room, I think it is, and, like, a train just shows up and takes her, like, on a magical journey, and she has to do, like, adventuring, and apparently I think there's, like, a boy trapped in a snow globe in this. I feel like that was this book that I heard that about. So, I'm very curious about this. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but it sounds like actually like a really good, like, Christmas-ish, like, around December 25th read, just based on the concept of boy stuck in a snow globe. Oh, I just noticed for the first time the back. Oh, I like that. I like all those illustrations. Also, I remember as a kid wanting to be a train conductor, so I'm very curious about that book. I also got my copy that I think I ordered on the day of its release, The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy by Mackenzie Lee. I'm kind of scared to read this for the same reason I am kind of scared to read Kingdom of Ash. I love Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue so much, but I know that she doesn't plan on doing any more in this series after this, and I'm just so curious about this, but also being like, oh god, I don't want it to end, sort of situation. So, I don't know when I'll get to this, but the design of this cover, like, I loved all, like, the doodles that they did on both of the covers. They did a really good job on that, and I'm very excited to read it whenever I do read it. I also picked up a copy of Not Even Bones by Rebecca Schreffer. She is another Canadian, I don't think she lives in Canada anymore though, but she was born on the Canadian prairies, and this is, I think this was originally, like, when it was optioned off, and it's still blurb, I think, too, was Dexter Meets Monsters of Verity by V.E. Schwab, and I've actually enjoyed Monsters of Verity, and I've never watched Dexter. I liked the concept of it, but I didn't find out about it until it was, like, 7 seasons in. I don't even know how many seasons of that show there is, but it felt like 7. And then I was like, cool, so maybe I'll just wait for it to end. And then, like, I think it, like, recently-ish ended. But it's just, like, I'm always just like, oh. Just, like, making that sort of a commitment. I'm like, at least with, like, I could just rewatch The Good Place. And, like, The Good Place is a messed up show to begin with, which I love. But, like, I at least know of, like, oh, there's only 3 seasons of that, and I've already watched 2 of them. So, like, yeah, nonetheless, very curious about this. It's supposed to be dark as hell, which I am so here for. I love, like, when I see books, they're like, oh, like, she's involved in, like, or, like, escaping, or from stalking Jack the Ripper, but, like, Audrey Rose is, like, a bit of a feminist for that time period, but, like, she's not a crazy, like, Dexter character. So, I'm so curious to get, a legitimately crazy YA female protagonist. I was also gifted or sent, I don't know what the proper word is, for The Crowns of Croswell by D.E. Knight. This is supposed, it sounds kind of like Shadowhunters meets Harry Potter, but there is, the only thing more powerful than the dark, thing more powerful than dark magic is one secret. It's a 16-year-old girl named Ivy who finds, like, these boundaries between the magical world and the mundane world, and she kind of goes on this adventure and finds out, you know, there's kind of a Voldemort-y sounding character, and I'm just so excited to read this. I'm hoping to get to it next month. The cover's really cool, and the author, it, like, came with, like, a little, like, light thing, too, got sent to my office, and it's just really cute, and I hope it's good. I have pretty high hopes for this one, actually. I don't specifically know why, but it just sounds really cool, and I think there's supposed to be a sequel, actually, in the works right now, I want to say. Either way, I'm gonna read this, and I also finally got, this book came out, like, over a month ago, like, the actual copy, but an ARC was finally sent to my office, The House of 1000 Eyes. This is from a smaller publisher in Canada, but I'm really, really curious about this. It's this girl in East Germany during the Cold War era, and her uncle goes missing. So, I mean, if you know anything about Eastern Germany, there's the assumption that when you went missing during the Cold War in East Germany, someone ratted you out for doing something, and you're never coming back. So she's kind of on the hunt for her uncle to try and find out what's going on and to get him back. And I'm very curious about this. Cold War, anything to do with Russia, anything to do with, like, kind of censorship-y, all right up my alley. So I'm very curious to give this one a go. Oh my god, I swear we're almost done. I also picked up a copy of The Hotel Between by Sean Easley. Once again, super interested because see that? See that? See that? That's like Russia. That's like Russia right there. So, yeah. All I know is there's like these kids that their mother is dead. They assume the father is dead, but they're not totally sure. And I assume they're in a hotel and going adventuring, trying to find about the father. And maybe they go to Russia. I don't know. Oh, I just noticed she's in a wheelchair. Oh, interesting. She's in a wheelchair when she's in Russia. Oh, even more curious now. Anyways, very excited to read this whenever I do read it. And last but definitely not least was Empress Unveiled by Jenna Moreland. I somehow bent the freaking cover right now. But this is a Canadian author as well. I looked at her book so many times at the bookstore, and it's signed because she's a local author. So she actually did send out a couple signed copies. And it's an urban fantasy. That's all I really know about it. But the things I have heard about it are actually quite positive. And as long as it's like, I don't know, this cover is just like what really took me in. But it's a Canadian author, and I know it's an urban fantasy, but she's supposed to die, and then she meets some guy who's, you know, kind of brings her-ish back to life. I don't think physically, but like makes her want to live or something. Yeah, that's all I know. So those are all of the books that I managed to accumulate in the month of October. Let me know in the comment section down below how many you did and that I'm not alone in this. Or give me some support even if you didn't do it, because I shame myself over this, even though I shouldn't, because like I bought the books knowing that I was going to buy the books. Like, I want them all. I will link all of the books in the description box down below, I think. I think I have enough energy to do that. But also make sure to check the description box for links to my social media. If you follow me, I will follow you